Welcome back to another episode of The Quiet Part Out Loud. I'm Nuvyn.
And I'm Alex. Today we're talking about women's wages.
I love it.
So we all know Glassdoor. Glassdoor has reviewed all of the salary reviews on their platform, 2.9 million salary reviews. And they have said women's wages stop growing a decade before men's do. So women's wages basically fall to zero by the time they hit 40. And this kind of brought me to the gender pay gap. We hear about the gender pay gap all the time.
I know, and you know I hate that word.
It's kind of a buzzword now, but it does exist. And there was actually this woman, Claudia Golden. We love her. She is the first woman to win the Nobel Prize in economics. And her work was on women's labor participation.
Right.
And so her study actually showed that the biggest trigger for the gender pay gap is motherhood.
Right.
So her work showed that as soon as a woman has a baby, that is what kind of slows down her salary trajectory, let's call it. Whereas men's salaries continue to rise or even accelerate. There's this lovely thing called the fatherhood bonus, I think. So if a man has a baby, they get paid more.
Okay, so I think I have to clarify. The reason why I do not like the phrase, the gender pay gap, is it's so overused. I don't think that we spend a lot of time actually pulling back the layers to really figure out, like, are we talking about identical roles, experience, and instead we just put everything that has to do with the disparity in pay into this thing that we just call now the gender pay gap.
Absolutely. I agree with you. And you know, there's a lot of kind of controversy over whether or not the pay gap actually exists and what the causes are. But actually in Claudia's work, she showed that early on, so decades ago, the pay gap existed because women were not participating in the workplace, right? So women were not working. The man in a heteronormative relationship would go work and the woman would stay home and she would take care of the kids. What Claudia found these days is that the disparity is based on how work and pay are structured. And so that could be a number of things. That could be, you know, the roles that women are choosing, the devaluation of the work that women do. It comes down to things like women don't choose to negotiate their salary when they're offered a role. There's a big, like you said, this big kind of bucket of things that contribute to the gap.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I think it gets kind of chalked up to, it's because you're a woman that there's a gender pay gap. And that's actually not the case.
No.
You know, there's so many variables that go into pay disparity. And I do think that a lot of companies are making great strides in doing salary reviews, and there being more transparency around pay as well too, whether it's publishing various pay lists. I know, we often call it like the Sunshine List here in Alberta, where, public sector salaries are posted online. You can look people up. So there are a lot of, I think, efforts underway to rectify and address whatever inequities have existed in the past. And I do think that moving forward, and maybe it's I was going to say naivete, but I actually don't think I'm naive about it. I think I'm just hopeful that, recent grads are starting out at the same wage, man or woman.
I was actually going to say, I have no data to support this either, but I'm hoping that with the work that we're doing, we're seeing women who are, taking control of their career journeys, and they're really embodying this sort of, powerful professional. And so my hope is that pay gap will close because we've got more women negotiating their salaries, more women, taking on leadership roles, and that those like for like compensation reviews will be equal.
Right. But I am curious about the motherhood penalty. I think that Claudia talks about in her research. And whether that is that your career has stalled and therefore your opportunity for promotion and increased compensation has likewise stalled because you have left the workforce for a number of years to have a child? Or is it something more cynical?
I actually think it's a number of things that in itself is a compounding, factor. When you take maternity leave, you stop contributing to your pension, you stop having an income. There is, kind of this stall in promotions. Someone on a maternity leave is often not considered for a promotion. I actually read a study recently that said in Canada, there are a number of women who in the last, I think it was 2021 to 2023, were laid off while they were on maternity leave. It's still, that sort of thing is still happening. And so again, it's a number of things. They're compounding. And so that motherhood penalty is not one thing. It is many things. Yeah.
Sometimes I think we try to force like the experience of motherhood and the fact that as women, we are oftentimes like the primary caregiver into a structure, corporate or otherwise, that is we've talked about on our podcast that like wasn't made for us. But it also kind of devalues then the role of being a mother.
Absolutely.
When actually that's a pretty cool thing to do. and a very cool thing to be.
I think also the leadership skills you learn when you have a baby.
I'm going to put everyone in a timeout,
Yes,
you mean?
Everyone is in a timeout. Time management and patience and, like
conflict resolution,
coaching, mentorship. Like there are so many skills you learn when you become a mother, I feel like, that add to your profession.
It's just sometimes we talk about the motherhood penalty in language that is very negative, that then I think just continues to just
cause itself.
Yeah. It becomes like a self-fulfilling, like, oh, well, you know what? Once you have kids, like you're not going to be able to progress in your career. Like it creates a negative narrative around motherhood.
Yeah. It is systemic, but like it can be changed as well. We just need champions to do that. So that's what we're here for,
right? Yeah. Exactly. More to come on this for sure.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of The Quiet Part Out Loud.
The Quiet Part Out Loud is produced by Access Connects and brought to you by Oh, wait, is there a sponsorship opportunity there? Learn more at accessconnects.com.